SummerSlam. Just hearing the name brings back flashes of spectacular entrances, jaw-dropping moments, and that electrifying energy of summer crowds. It's the summer's biggest party, not just a pay-per-view. However, some SummerSlams have been different, with rivalries that erupted in the bright lights, memorable matches, and stacked cards. Today, we're going to explore the top 10 SummerSlam Supercards ever. Not just the main events, but those full nights where everything clicked from the first ring to the last ring. This list is worth exploring whether you've been a wrestling fan for a long time or are just getting started. Let's get into it. SummerSlam 2002. There are great SummerSlams, and then there's SummerSlam 2002. This one wasn't just another event, it was a turning point. It went down on August 25th inside the Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. It was the first Big Four pay-per-view after WWE's initial brand split. Over 14,000 fans packed the arena, and by the end of the night, they knew they'd witnessed something special. The night kicked off with a match still praised today, Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. Their first ever clash was a high-speed technical masterpiece. Rey, fresh off his debut, proved he could hang with the very best. That match alone set the tone for what would become the legendary SmackDown 6. Edge versus Eddie Guerrero was another gem, a back-and-forth clinic in ring psychology. These two weren't just stealing the show, they were proving they belonged at the top. And Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit? Another banger. RVD walked out with the Intercontinental title and the crowd was eating it up. Then you had the emotional center of this show, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. After 4 years away, 4 years thinking he might never wrestle again, HBK came back. And what a return. The unsanctioned street fight was violent, dramatic, and full of heart. Michaels looked like he hadn't missed a beat, and the crowd was with him every second. He got the win, but then Triple H dropped him with a brutal sledgehammer shot. Just classic storytelling. And then the main event, a true passing of the torch. The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. The crowd turned on The Rock and rallied behind this absolute beast of a newcomer. By the end, Lesnar stood tall as the youngest WWE undisputed champion in history, and the next big thing was no longer just hype. Top to bottom, this show had it all with star-making moments, emotional returns, title changes, and a crowd that never let up. 2 decades later, fans still point to this as the perfect pay-per-view. If you haven't rewatched SummerSlam 2002 in a while, trust me, it's worth every second. SummerSlam 1992. There have been legendary SummerSlams, but none quite like SummerSlam 1992. WWE brought a big pay-per-view to the United Kingdom for the first and only time. The stage? London's iconic Wembley Stadium. And with nearly 80,000 fans packed inside, it was a moment that was loud, wild, and unforgettable. To make it even more special, WWE put their hometown hero, the British Bulldog, in the main event. And not just in any match, he was challenging Bret the Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. These two weren't just professionals, they were family. Bulldog was married to Bret's sister, Diana. That added layer of real-life drama gave the match even more weight. And what a match it was! Bret Hart delivered one of the best performances of his career, guiding Bulldog through a technical masterpiece. The crowd was hanging on every move. Bulldog countered a sunset flip and scored the pin, winning the IC title and sending Wembley into absolute chaos. The moment Diana raised both men's hands after the match, pure emotion. That image is still one of the most powerful in SummerSlam history. Elsewhere on the card, Macho Man Randy Savage defended the WWF Championship against the Ultimate Warrior in a high-stakes rematch from WrestleMania 7. The match ended in a countout, but not before Warrior and Savage teamed up to stop Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect, who had been messing with them the whole time. Not the cleanest finish, but the energy was undeniable. And who could forget the Legion of Doom's iconic motorcycle entrance? That opening tag match against Money Inc. wasn't a classic, but the visual was unforgettable and the crowd loved it. SummerSlam 1992 may not have been the most stacked from top to bottom, but what it lacked in overall card depth, it more than made up for in atmosphere, storytelling, and a main event for the ages. Still to this day, it's one of WWE's most beloved and historic nights. If you've never seen it, this one's a must. SummerSlam 2013. SummerSlam 2013 wasn't just another pay-per-view, it felt like the whole direction of WWE shifted in one night. Live from the Staples Center in Los Angeles, this show had a double main event that still hits hard today. First, we had a personal war, Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk in a no disqualification match. It was an emotional build-up. Punk made a comeback after losing to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29 because they wanted to distance themselves from Paul Heyman. Heyman, however, took the rejection seriously. Things took a turn for the worse after he snubbed Lesnar on Punk. These These two blew it up at SummerSlam. Punk was the ideal underdog babyface because he was tenacious, unrelenting, and fiery. And Brock? Brock was an unstoppable monster. The chemistry was off the charts. Every chair shot, every counter, every Heyman interference meant something. In the end, Lesnar hit an F5 onto a steel chair for the win, but Punk earned every bit of the crowd's respect. A classic. Then came the second main event, John Cena versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Cena handpicked Bryan as his challenger, but the McMahons didn't want him as the face of WWE. Triple H, though, played it straight as the special guest referee. The match was easily one of the best main events in SummerSlam history. Bryan beat Cena clean, with no gimmicks, no shenanigans, pure wrestling. However, just when it seemed like Bryan had finally arrived, all of a sudden, Randy Orton cashed in Money in the Bank to steal the title after Triple H turned heel with a pedigree. Just like that, the Authority era was born. The undercard delivered big too. Del Rio vs. Christian flew under the radar but turned out to be a gem. Bray Wyatt made his eerie in-ring debut against Kane in a Ring of Fire match, setting the tone for his dark persona. And Cody Rhodes finally got his moment of redemption against former partner Damian Sandow. From start to finish, SummerSlam 2013 was stacked, emotional, action-packed, and full of twists. It not only was the best WWE event of the decade, it also defined the road to WrestleMania 30. SummerSlam 2000. SummerSlam 2000 was pure Attitude Era magic and was wild, chaotic, and packed with iconic moments. Held in Raleigh, North Carolina, it was part of what many fans considered WWE's best year for pay-per-views, and this show was easily one of the highlights. The main event, The Rock vs. Triple H vs. Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, was as dramatic as it gets. However, this was a personal matter and not just about the title. Triple H, Stephanie McMahon's real-life husband, took it seriously when Angle showed interest in her. Kurt kissed Stephanie on SmackDown just days before the show, which set the stage for a sour confrontation. Triple H attacked Angle, pedigreed him on the announce table, and unintentionally gave him a real concussion before the bell had even rung. The match became a gritty two-man war until Angle returned later, only for The Rock to retain the title by pinning Triple H after a steel chair shot and a people's elbow. The true show stealer, though, the first ever tables, ladders, and chairs match. With ladders flying, bodies smashing through tables, and heart-pounding drama, Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys put on an incredible show. It was a landmark event that permanently altered tag team wrestling. The undercard was just as loaded. Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho in a 2 out of 3 falls match was a technical masterclass, with Benoit winning 2-1. Meanwhile, Shane McMahon, because of course it's Shane, fell 40 to 50 feet off the Titantron, as described by Shane himself, after Steve Blackman hit him with a kendo stick, an insane moment that had fans holding their breath. From insane spots to emotional storytelling, SummerSlam 2000 had it all. It was the Attitude Era at its chaotic best, and even over 2 decades later, it still belongs in the conversation as one of the greatest SummerSlams of all time. SummerSlam 1998. If there's one word for SummerSlam 1998, it's electric. Madison Square Garden was rocking, and WWE was deep in the Attitude Era and was raw, loud, and firing on all cylinders. The build-up was intense. WWE hyped it as the highway to hell, and at the end of that road was a collision between the two biggest babyfaces in the business. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Undertaker for the WWF Championship. The entire roster felt entangled in the months-long build-up to the match, which included Vince McMahon, Kane, and Mankind, making it one of the most layered feuds of the era. Although Madison Square Garden exploded and Austin won, both men later expressed that the match didn't quite reach the level they had hoped for. Nevertheless, it was a moment, and the audience relished every second. But the match everyone remembers? The Rock vs. Triple H in an Intercontinental Championship ladder match. This was more than a title bout. It was personal. The leaders of the Nation of Domination and D-Generation X clashed in a heated war that had ladders, chairs, interference from China, and a crowd that was on fire. Triple H pulled off the win with China's help, but both men walked out looking like future main eventers. It was the show stealer, no question. The undercard also performed well. DX fans got a satisfying payoff when Jeff Jarrett got his head shaved in a hair versus hair match against X-Pac. In a rare and underappreciated match, Ken Shamrock defeated Owen Hart in a vicious Lion's Den match. The NYC crowd responded well to Edge's pay-per-view debut when he and Sable defeated Mark Marrow and Jacqueline. Top to bottom, SummerSlam 98 wasn't just great. It captured WWE at a moment when everything was working. Red-hot feuds, a stacked roster, and Madison Square Garden at its loudest. It was Attitude Era magic. SummerSlam 2008. With a Hell in a Cell match that felt like cinematic theater, SummerSlam 2008 in Detroit was more than just another show. It was hardcore storytelling at its purest. Undertaker vs. Edge took place inside the merciless steel fortress for the picture-perfect main event. This was a long-brewing retaliation match as Edge had repeatedly betrayed Undertaker, and the dead man came back to even the score at SummerSlam. It was electric and violent from the beginning. The crowd gasped in amazement as Edge speared Taker through the cage wall and then through the announce tables. The two tore the cell apart with chairs, ladders, cameras, steps. If it could hurt, they used it. Taker swung the match his way with a thunderous chokeslam through stacked tables, followed by a vicious con chair too, and then sealed it with the tombstone. But he wasn't finished. After the bell, he climbed a ladder, grabbed Edge, and chokeslammed him straight through the ring. Flames shot up as Taker walked off. It felt less like a win and more like vengeance from beyond. This match was hailed by reviewers as a near 5-star thriller. One noted Edge dominated much of the early portion before Taker came back like a freight train. Fans on Reddit called the ending magnificent and cathartic, the poetic end to an epic saga. But it wasn't just the main event that delivered. On the undercard, John Cena faced Batista, marking Batista's first singles match against John Cena at the event. And the mid-card was stacked, featuring matches like CM Punk versus John Bradshaw Layfield, JBL, and Triple H defending the WWE Championship against the Great Khali, reflecting WWE's deep talent pool at the time. Character, escalation, and spectacle were more important aspects of SummerSlam 2008 than violence. You feel it, not just see it. It reminded WWE fans and raised the standard for cell matches in the PG era. SummerSlam 2001. At the Nassau Coliseum, SummerSlam 2001 was more than just a wrestling match. It was a battleground. This show focused on WWF versus the Alliance, a clash of pride, power, and legacy, much like 1997 did with the Hart Foundation. It was the first time two African Americans were the main event of a WWE pay-per-view, and the main event featured The Rock versus Booker T for the WCW Championship. Despite the intensity, drama, and interference in the match, The Rock ultimately hit the rock bottom and took home the gold, ensuring that the WWF would continue to hold the title. However, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle for the WWF Championship was the co-main event that provided the emotional center of the evening. This was personal as well as technical. Suplexes struck with meaning, bodies collided, and blood poured. With the support of the crowd, Angle prevailed in one of the year's best bouts, but only by disqualification, so Austin kept the title. Angle stood tall though, and the audience cheered. In a hardcore ladder match earlier in the evening, Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy gave a clinic. With dives, ladder crashes, and an unrelenting pace, it was chaos in the best way. RVD retained, cementing himself as one of the most exciting stars of the era. Edge defeated Lance Storm in the opening match to win the Intercontinental Championship, marking a huge step in his rise toward becoming a future world champion. Meanwhile, the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker, and Kane unified the WWF and WCW tag team titles by destroying Diamond Dallas Page and Kanyon in a steel cage. Chris Jericho defeated Rhino in a personal grudge match, adding another strong bout to the card. SummerSlam 2001 was excellent, chaotic, and packed with plot from beginning to end. In addition to giving fans a memorable evening in New York, it intensified the WWF versus Alliance rivalry. SummerSlam 1997. Tension, passion, and memorable moments were all present at SummerSlam 1997, also known as Heart and Soul as WWE called it. On August 3rd, it took place in front of more than 20,000 passionate fans at the Continental Airlines Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. WWE was hot going into the show. The most powerful group in wrestling, the Hart Foundation, was at the forefront of the stacked roster and fierce feuds. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Owen Hart for the Intercontinental Championship was one of the most talked about bouts of the evening, but regrettably for the wrong reason. The tension was sky high, especially with the added stipulation that Austin would have to kiss Owen's butt if he lost. But halfway through, disaster struck. Owen hit a botched tombstone piledriver, dropping Austin on his neck. He was briefly paralyzed, a real injury that would haunt the rest of his career. But Austin, ever the fighter, somehow pulled off a clumsy roll-up to win. It was raw, emotional, and hard to watch. The main event told a different kind of story. Bret Hart faced The Undertaker for the WWE title, with his biggest rival, Shawn Michaels, as guest referee. Emotions were already high, and when Bret spit in Shawn's face, HBK snapped. He swung a steel chair meant for Bret but accidentally hit Taker instead. Everything changed with that one swing. Bret won his 5th WWE title after pinning the dead man. The audience was in disbelief. Silently, the seeds were sown for Shawn versus Taker, and later, the Montreal Screwjob. Elsewhere, British Bulldog, the WWF European Champion, retained the title by disqualification over Ken Shamrock, while Mankind defeated Triple H in a gritty steel cage opener. SummerSlam 1997 was more than just a pay-per-view event. It was the most obvious indication yet that the Attitude Era was approaching, and it was a violent and intimate chapter in WWE history. SummerSlam 2005. SummerSlam 2005 was a memorable evening filled with star power, nostalgia, and unforgettable moments at the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. This event was full of both established legends and up-and-coming talent. Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero engaged in a passionate and intense ladder match for custody of Dominic. Rey flew, Eddie punished, and young Dominic even tried stopping Eddie himself. Just as Eddie was about to win, Vicky Guerrero interfered, tipping the ladder. Rey seized the moment, grabbed the briefcase, and embraced Dominic in a heartfelt finish. Edge versus Matt Hardy came with real-life heat thanks to the messy fallout with Lita. Fans expected chaos and got it, but the match turned brutal fast. Edge busted Hardy open early and just kept going, forcing a referee stoppage. It was short, intense, and uncomfortable. Not the back-and-forth fans hoped for, but a raw, real-feeling moment all the same. Then came Chris Benoit versus Orlando Jordan for the US title, and Benoit wasted no time, pinning him in around 25 seconds with a devastating crippler crossface. In a wild twist, Randy Orton shocked The Undertaker with help from a disguised fan, his dad, Cowboy Bob Orton. One RKO later, Randy scored a huge SummerSlam win. Total legacy moment. Now for the main events, John Cena defended his WWE Championship against Chris Jericho. Jericho came close with the walls and top rope suplex, but Cena dug deep, countered late, and hit the FU for the win. A strong defense that kept him the guy. Batista and John Bradshaw Layfield threw down in a no-holds-barred match, with Batista delivering a Batista bomb on 2 steel steps to keep his World Heavyweight title. In a true icon versus icon clash, Hulk Hogan battled Shawn Michaels in a dramatic main event. After a mix of showmanship and intensity, Hogan hit the big boot and leg drop to win. Post-match, they shared a meaningful handshake. From legends to title fights to heartfelt moments, SummerSlam 2005 was a celebration from start to finish. It was a night that will never be forgotten. This is the one to go back to if you want WWE at its best across generations. SummerSlam 2016. The stakes couldn't have been higher for the first major pay-per-view following WWE's brand split. SummerSlam 2016. Fans were treated to a night full of chaos, history, and memorable moments as Raw and SmackDown Live competed to show who had the superior roster. We had a dream match in the main event that ended up being a nightmare. The match between SmackDown's Randy Orton and Raw's Brock Lesnar was a dream match that turned into a total nightmare. Lesnar's vicious elbows busted Orton open hard, leaving him in a pool of blood and fans in total shock. Lesnar won by TKO after the referee had to call off the bout. The fans were taken aback. When Shane McMahon went outside to see how Orton was doing, he was rewarded with an F5. It was more than just a match, it was a statement. The main event earlier in the evening was John Cena versus AJ Styles. Heart, drama, and athleticism were all on full display in their Money in the Bank rematch. Styles defeated Cena clean in the middle of the ring, a career-defining moment that launched him toward the WWE title picture. That moment, when Cena left his armband in the ring, said it all. We also witnessed history with the crowning of the first-ever WWE Universal Champion. Sadly, Finn Balor as the Demon King suffered a shoulder injury that would force him to give up the title the very next night after defeating Seth Rollins in an incredible match. Dean Ambrose defeated Dolph Ziggler to retain the WWE Championship in SmackDown's main event, and Charlotte Flair reclaimed the Raw Women's Championship from Sasha Banks in another match that stole the show. From vicious knockouts to historic victories, SummerSlam 2016 showed who WWE was ready to build around. It wasn't just about brands, it was about up-and-coming celebrities claiming the limelight and making it their own. Marvelous verdict. That concludes our list of the top 10 greatest SummerSlam Supercards of all time. These shows were events that shaped eras, from dramatic title changes and legendary rivalries to memorable drama and star-making performances. One thing is certain, SummerSlam has always been more than just the biggest party of the summer. It's a place where history is written and legacy is created. Now I want to hear from you. What's your favorite SummerSlam moment? Was it a classic main event, a shocking twist, or maybe a match that just stuck with you for years? Drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into wrestling history, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching and sharing your passion for WWE with me. Keep the energy up, the cheers loud, and I'll see you at the next big event.